Mic'd up.
48 of the Rovner Report on the Mic'd Up platform. I'm AJ Rovner, joined alongside a fan. Oh, there it is, joined alongside Sam Kirk. We'll talk about some Giants football today as it really feels like the start of the new NFL season. Some of the veterans are in the weight room. Rookie OTAs are around the corner. Rookie minicamp, OTAs as well. And then, of course, the big story here is the NFL draft, which is just in about 54 hours from exactly right now. If 8 o'clock will be the first overall pick just after Roger Goodell opens it up. The Tennessee Titans will be on the clock, and the Giants, of course, have a monumental third overall pick. But to be honest, it's a big draft for an array of reasons. It could certainly decide Joe Schoen and Brian Dable's future, which is already in question, and just the overall future of this organization, which has been, besides 1 year in 2022, a really bad stretch, I feel like, since we won the Super Bowl in 2011. So, Sam, I'll open it up to you. Any thoughts to start off the show?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that Cam Ward and Travis Hunter are going to be the first two picks of this draft, and I think Cam Ward has already been told by the Tennessee Titans that he will be the first pick of this draft. So that basically starts things off with Cleveland, and that's where the Giants will that's where they'll be forced to take either Abdul Carter or potentially a quarterback at number 3 this morning. There's been some more buzz around the league. The Giants are inclined to take a quarterback at 3, and that's still on the table at the moment. There's also been whispers that the Giants favor Jackson Dart. Some in the front office favor Jackson Dart over Shedeur Sanders, which I think's an important side note there, that even if Sanders goes here in that mid to higher first round, I wouldn't rule out the Giants potentially trading back in the first round on Thursday night to, get a shot at a Jackson Dart potentially. So a lot could be happening here on Thursday. Giants could be done picking within 30 minutes of the draft opening, or they could be potentially making the biggest moves of the night. And it will be definitely an interesting draft. I mean, this quarterback draft class is nothing special. These guys are not going in the top 10. There's probably going to be 2 at max in the top 10, unless we have another Michael Penix scenario of last year. But at that same time, I really doubt that. I think that Shedeur and Cam Ward are those potential guys to go in the top 10 here. But other than that, the depth of this draft class is more in the trenches here. So we'll talk about some Giants options and what we kind of think is going to be, most probable scenario heading into Thursday. But a lot to discuss here, Age.
The Giants draft picks go like this. In the first round, they have the number 3 overall pick. In the second round, they'll have the third overall pick again, which is number 34. And then they will have pick number 65 in round 3, as well as pick number 99. You go to the fourth round, 105, round 5, 154, and the seventh, 219 and 246. I personally, we'll start off with 3, and then we'll kind of go down the rest of the draft, just go by positions of need. Of course, the big one is round 1, number 3. I personally think they are going to take Abdul Carter for an array of reasons. One, you could always say, is my bias. I've watched him play to pretty much a full extent. This is a dominant player who could play both sides of the defensive line, outside linebacker. He could do pretty much anything. He could cover guys. He has good hands. He could get to the quarterback, an elusive first step. And then just hints of him posting on his Twitter, Lawrence Taylor in the outside linebackers room. Just a lot of things that make you think that the Giants have intentions on drafting Carter, and Carter wants to be a Giant. And the other thing that really comes to my mind is that maybe not for this regime, Dable and Shane, but Mara and the ownership group is always thinking about what's the next year, right? Obviously, Winston and Wilson are 1-year rentals. Tommy DeVito isn't it. So Archie Manning's in the next draft. The quarterback class is probably much better next year than it is this year. So taking an edge rusher at 3 could certainly help. And then I think that puts Thibodeau on the trade block, and maybe you can get a pick or something of that nature later in the draft. But let's start with you, Sam. Round 1, number 3, who would you take?
Yeah, I mean, I'll have to agree with you there. Definitely, you hit all the talking points that I would say about Carter as well. I think it's worth touching on the just the scenario that Carter goes second to the Browns. I think the Giants would seriously consider a trade down, or I believe they would take Travis Hunter there. I think Joe Shane is at this point he needs a guaranteed stud no matter what position this is coming from. When you're looking at bad teams across the NFL, I think sometimes people get a little too cute in terms of trying to draft for need. We need better players. That's the bottom line here on this team, on this roster, and I think Travis Hunter is going to be able to provide that sooner than a quarterback would for the Giants. And I know, that quarterback selection, everyone says to risk the biscuit if you love the guy, but at this point, I think we would hear a little bit more if the Giants were really loving somebody at 3 at that position.
And then you really start to go into the other rounds, and there's so many positions of need for New York. You just go down the offensive line. John Michael Schmitz Jr. is just not it to me. I don't think that he is the center of the future. Now going into his third year out of Minnesota. I know there were very big aspirations for him in the draft with Deonte Banks. It felt very similar to Banks. Promising first year, extremely disappointing second year. And then you go to the defensive side. I mean, I think they still need a little bit of help on the interior with Lawrence, even if you get Carter. Certainly think you need to target a linebacker and a little bit more help in the secondary. I know you've probably done more research on the later rounds than me, but who are some guys you'd be targeting later rounds, second, third, fourth? And I mean, I know people certainly say, hey, the later rounds might not be as important, but the Giants don't win 2 Super Bowls without the seventh round. 5 picks from the end of Mod Bradshaw, that little running back at Marshall. So you talk to me about just some targets for the second day and
Yeah,
the
I
third.
think that's an important note here, Age. And the Giants also, to my knowledge, have 3 picks on that second day. I believe they have 2 third-round picks. So I think that day is going to be quite crucial for New York. Being third pick, it's hard to mess up. Like we said, the chances of the Giants adding Travis Hunter or an Abdul Carter are very high at this point. So it's going to be hard to mess that pick up. But when you're looking in the second round, there's going to be a lot of talent there. And I think, AJ, you brought up a lot of good points about position of need. Thinking about it, cornerback, I would definitely say outside linebacker, potentially another middle linebacker. I like another defensive tackle potentially. I think that would be a good addition. Cornerback helps. So lot to option on the offensive side of the ball. You can potentially take another wide receiver. You could take another running back. You could take an offensive lineman. There's a lot of options here on the board, and this draft class to me is a lot deeper in that edge department. So if the Giants are able to get that out of the way, I think there's going to be a run of edges towards the end of the first round, giving them some ammo in the second. Guys I like that they talk to. I think we should worth noting Quinshon Judkins, running back. Definitely think he's first round type of player. There's probably 2 first round running backs to my knowledge here in this draft. Ashton Jeanty. You could throw Marion Hampton as well in that conversation. But other than that, Travion Henderson is probably the third back, and then you'll go with Judkins and the rest of them in that second round. I like Trey Harris as well out of Ole Miss. I think he's a talented player that if the Giants could, add another wide receiver, I think somebody along the lines of him would be nice. Like we said, if they're taking Carter here, that defense has the potential to be really great, I think, next year already. So for them to double down in the first couple rounds, I think, you know, on defense, I personally think it would be a little much. And being that their offense was that bad in the last couple of years. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting because I really have an inkling that the Giants are going to trade up. So I'm guessing that one of those mid round picks may not be there, but a lot of options on the board. AJ, the strength in this draft kind of lies in those middle rounds. So it's this first round is a lot of kind of pick your poison after you get past the first 10, I'd say, and then these guys are kind of all like up in the air a little bit, and there's guys that are falling too. That are dramatically falling, and I think it's going to be worth noting when you're picking that high in the second round. You're kind of looking at that group of first round players that's falling into the second, and unfortunately, we've been stuck there for quite some years. And the Giants have done decently in that second round. Xavier McKinney, they've had some hits in the second round in the last couple of years. Wandale's been okay, but hopefully, they're able to make some picks in this draft as well. Any other positions that kind of stand out to you? I like the JMS idea. I think they definitely could add a center. I think
Yeah.
interior offensive line's worth noting too. Greg Van Roten is coming back. You might be moving Neal to guard, but I still think it's worth adding another guard somewhere.
Yeah. And I also think it's worth maybe adding a tackle. I mean, you have to have some sort of concern about Andrew Thomas's health. I don't think that could be not noted. I mean, the guy just hasn't played a lot the last 2 years, and he's one of the best when healthy. But I think there needs to be a discussion. Hey, do we go tackle? I mean, I know the first thing you brought up when you were speaking just now was running backs. I still will never understand the Devin Singletary signing, and then you still have Eric Gray and Dante Turbo Miller on the roster. But I would say the Giants do need to draft a running back in this draft. I love seeing guys that are late in the draft that perform in big moments. A guy that really stands out to me is Cam Scatabo from Arizona State, an experienced guy, small, tough, and was just huge in the college football playoff. And then you go over to center. I'm just here on CBS, just looking at all the players that have entered the draft. I'm going over to interior offensive line here. Certainly some guys that are later. Seth McLaughlin, I think you brought up Seth, right? From Ohio State. I believe you brought up him from Ohio State. Love guys that win championships. So
It's also that Big Ten, It's like we kind of see that what
that's
they
true.
build through that offensive line. They kind of were hoping that was kind of going to be the thought process behind a pick like JMS, but unfortunately, it wasn't the case. But again, the strength of this class, I think, is in that D line. I think a lot of players, are kind of there's going to be tons of edges. I like Josh Simmons out of Ohio State. He's a tackle. He kind of got injured last year. He had an ACL. He's supposed to go at the end of round one at this point. But again, I think he's definitely somebody worth considering. At the start of the second round into, I mean, he's probably going to end up going that late first, but he has a chance to fall. Trey Amos out of Old Miss, I like a lot. I think he's the potential to be a decent player. Jackson Dart, again, I'm comfortable if the Giants are going to select Jackson Dart, and I wouldn't rule out the possibility. He to me, that seems like the best fit for what Dable wants at a quarterback out of all the guys in this year. And I think if you bring him in and let him develop under what we have in the quarterback room now, I genuinely think the Giants have a good plan heading into next year. So
And I did want to ask, what is your two things? I'm just looking at the offensive side of the ball here too. We're jumping around a little bit, but the tight end room isn't that strong either. I mean, Theo Johnson showed a lot of hope last year, but got hurt late. I mean, Bellinger,
how early would
Manhurst.
you take a tight end? Because I really love Colston Loveland out of Michigan. I don't think he makes it out of the first round, but this guy I think is a real solid player. And other than Tyler Warren, I think those guys are really they're the guys at those positions in my opinion. And I see him at 12 on a big board. Like, you never know with tight ends, but would that be too high in the second after taking
I
Theo?
would love to try and trade for Warren and have the Johnson Lawrence here, but there's no way you think they do that, right?
No, because they just have too much value at 3 already. Like, you're getting the best player in the draft and having the third pick, so it's tougher to do that. Some other sleeper guys I wanted to mention. There's a guy named Gray Zabel out of North Dakota State. He's an interior offensive lineman. I really like his game. I heard some good things about him during his time at the Senior Bowl. I usually get the chance to go, but some of my guys that were out there this year said he stood out to them. Amico Ibuka, I think, is an interesting name, AJ, when you're thinking about a receiver that can really be the Giants' B receiver to Malik Neighbors. Re-signing Darius Slayton, I don't think really changes their outlook on taking a receiver at least in the second or third, at least one. I don't think they double dip in the middle rounds or anything like that, but I think they definitely have the potential to take a receiver like that. Omarion Hampton out of North Carolina should probably fall the second round. I think he's an interesting option for the Giants. Like I said, there's a lot of depth in this draft class, and a lot of the strength is going to be in that second or third round. A guy that we actually saw play, AJ Kevin Winston Jr. Out of Penn State. He's kind of a safety, can move around back there a little bit.
Would
I
have
think
went
he
way
could be.
higher if he wasn't hurt.
Yeah, he would be way higher if he didn't get injured last year. That was a tough loss for Penn State too. They missed him dearly down the stretch in that last year, but yeah, I think he's definitely potentially to be up there as well. Like, again, this is going to be an interesting round 2 or 3. I like Jaden Higgins out of Iowa State. I think he's a solid player. He's a 6'5" guy. He's going to go up and get the football for you. There's a couple interior guys like Tyreek Williams, Darius Alexander that I think the Giants can look into. And I think you made a good point there, AJ, that in the second round, I think is an important spot for the Giants that get Dex that interior help. I think Kenneth Grant's a name out of Michigan to circle there if he's able to fall out of that first round. He's kind of a bigger run stuffing guy, but also provides that pass rushing inside that the Giants desperately lack because Dex just isn't going to give that to you. Um, Benjamin Morrison out of Notre Dame, I hear a lot of people like as well. He's kind of that fringe first or second round guy as well. So there's a lot of directions the Giants can go here. And to me, the most probable scenarios are probably going to be in the trenches. I would guess interior defensive line or offensive line there in the second round. But hey, they have 3 picks and they're going to use them, and I guarantee they'll use one on a high end, wide receiver, running back type of player. One will be going. So
Yeah, I think it seems as though the Giants on the offensive end, especially just the depth is not there. Outside neighbors, Robinson, Slay, and there really isn't much. And the offensive line, they didn't really do anything besides some re-signs. They got James Hudson, Brian Hudson, Jimmy Morrissey, but there really isn't much on the depth end of things for New York. So I want to change the direction a little bit since we went into the draft for the first half of the show, and I want to kind of push the outlook to moving a little bit forward into more of the training camp, regular season type of transition, I would say, from the draft. Are there any veterans that you think would be on the fence of potentially not making the roster or certainly having their role reduced? You're muted. Muted.
sorry, Age. A guy that we might have hinted at there a little bit. If the Giants were going to take a tight end semi-high in the draft, I think Daniel Bellinger has the potential to be cut this year. Um, I know that the Giants like Theo Johnson, and I think that's going to be their starting tight end heading into next year. And if they're drafting a guy as well that they like, I think Daniel Bellinger has the potential to not make that team. And I don't know if they're going to end up taking a third guy that kind of specializes in more of a receiver role over Chris Manhertz, who, again, is more of a blocking type of tight end. So I could see that being a cut there from Daniel Bellinger. Devin Singletary. I mean, me and you have complained about this for weeks on end. Guy should have never been signed. It should have never been a deal. Um, it, you don't. It just never really made sense in terms of the Giants signing him, and he just wasn't what you expected last year. Had fumbling issues right out of the gate. Tyrone Tracy outplayed him pretty much in every game, and we both expect the Giants to draft a running back as well. So, like we said, expect that to be happening, and I don't really. I'd be kind of shocked if Singletary's on this team heading into next year. I know it might be a cap hit of something, but the Giants will save some type of money, I believe, if they do cut Singletary. So that's the move that I would make. Some other ones to keep in mind, I think, is Nacho.
Yeah, he was
If the,
right here. Yeah, it was on my posted here.
if the Giants address interior D line like me and you want them to, and they should, I believe Nacho can get cut. I like Roy Robertson Harris already over him. I think Elijah Chapman, what he showed
Yeah,
last year,
in the
is just as good as
preseason.
Nacho. I think DJ Davison has the chance to be cut. We're just going down the D line here. um, like this defense to me, I think the only guys that are 100% safe, like to start, Bobby O, Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, Paulson Adebo, Tyler Nubin, and Javon Holland and Drew Phillips. I think that's the core you're looking at, which is solid to me. Banks, I don't. He's not going to get cut, but he has a chance to kind of get wiggled out this year. If he just doesn't flat out play well, then you know the Giants are going to take a quarter in the draft. And what I saw from Cordell Flott last year was way better than what we saw from Deontay Banks on a consistency level. So I don't think they're going to be scared to bench Banks in favor of Flott at this rate. But yeah, tons of. I think there's a lot of cut opportunities on this roster. AJ, I think that's a great point you just brought up there. I think there might be a lot of guys packing bags come August here and heading out to the Quest Dinox parking lot and not coming back. But
Yeah, you also have to think about that there aren't many guys' jobs are safe when you go 3-14. You've gotten consistently worse each of the past 2 seasons. And the year that the Giants made the playoffs, I mean, yeah, there were additions like Isaiah Hodgins and Jihad Ward when they played the NFC Championship game. But the premises of that roster was from past regimes and not theirs. Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones, whether you like to hear it or not, he was huge down the stretch. His best game as a Giant was against the Colts to make the postseason. Phenomenal against
McKinney
Minnesota.
was great that year. He was a
Right.
gentleman. Like,
Lawrence, right? All those. So proving my point there. So really the guys that Dable and Shane have consistently brought in just haven't performed. But I looked up the Devin Singletary contract. If the Giants were to cut Singletary, they would have to pay, let's see here, 11,250,000 to him, and you'd have to give him, that would be 1,250,000 dead cap if the Giants were ultimately going to let go of the 28-year-old veteran running back. Singletary last year.
they're tied, man. They can't do much with that. Then they really, I mean, unless they want to eat 11 mil. But to me, that's basically a no cut. Which I don't know if they draft a running back that sucks for Eric Gray and Turbo. Like those guys stand no chance with that contract
Yeah,
at the back end.
I think you know what you've got him with Gray, but each of the past 2 preseasons, Miller's really shown flashes. I mean, you go to the Giants here, stat page, and look at Singletary. It was his least amount of carries by 38, his least amount of yards by 250. First year he's ever averaged 4 yards per carry or less. Second most fumbles he's lost in a season, least amount of first downs by 13, and really just lost the starting role to Tyrone Tracy Jr. So I think that shows you that there's always a running back later in drafts that can really make an impact. Tracy was 1,000-yard rusher, almost 1,000-yard rusher, 1,000 all-purpose yards, I believe, and yeah, it really just shows that the contract with Singletary, which I felt like is a very impulsive move after Barkley's departure, may not be turning out the way the Giants had hoped. But we'll continue on here with 2 questions, and then we will wrap up our thoughts and come back on next week and talk about this recap for the Giants as training camp now is right around 3 months away. And yeah, let's answer these 2 questions. One from my dad.
There was no reason to take 2 quarterbacks. I was just fine with Winston. Anyway, I'm hoping the Giants do not select a quarterback. Do you think they will? And where do you think they're going? I'm hoping it's Hunter if he's there. If not, Abdul Carter.
Well, to talk about that, and then I'll let you answer it, Sam. Listen, Wilson's a 36-year-old quarterback, has a proven track record. And I feel like you just know what you're going to get at this point. A guy that's not going to put the ball in harm's way a lot, threw 5 picks last year. I mean, he's never thrown more than 13 interceptions in a season. So Winston's just the complete opposite. I mean, it is literally you can't, but younger, right? And I mean, this is a guy that has, I mean, his quarterback to touchdown ratio is could be alarming. I mean, but you look at just some of the games here, and he could just go off this day. And it just, I'd love to know what went through Malik Neighbors' mind when they signed Wilson, because just to have a guy that's going to chuck the ball down. But some of the Giants really haven't had since Eli. So, and of course,
Even so, the last couple of years of Eli, it wasn't a lot of deep action, so it's been even longer than that. And not even, I'm thinking 2015. That's like 2015 to me was like the last year the Giants had like a watchable passing offense, if that makes sense. Like other than that, it's been like it's so sickening to watch your team pass for like 150 yards a game for 6 years. Like at some point, this has to end, right? And it can't be rushed though. Like people wanna, we gotta take it now. We gotta take the quarterback now. Like, great point, Mr. Rovner. Like they can't not force this because that's what they did with Jones, and them forcing that pick put them back a decade. So for them to go out there at 3 and run out and say Shedeur Sanders would be a mistake in my opinion. And I think the value in this draft, like we said, is going to be in those middle rounds. And the potential of a Dart or a Milrow, I think, in the second or third round is going to be way higher than you taking a shot at a guy that you don't think deserves to be drafted at 3. That's just kind of where I'm standing on this. Like, I'd rather have a Dart at it because then you're not losing that first round pick. You're still getting that Abdul Carter. You're taking a shot in the second or the late first. Like, you've got to be very careful about what you do here. And I know everything's on the line for those two, which makes me think even more that they cannot afford to miss in the first round. They can't afford to do it. If they draft a bust in the first round, they are done. Even if it's a rookie quarterback that doesn't play that well, they're done. So
I think you also have to realize that the Giants draft the quarterback. Winston could be cut. I don't think people honestly realize that. It's a very crowded
it's also a
quarterback.
cuttable contract. It's like 2 for $8 million. Like they could easily just cut
Right.
ties and nothing really matters. But
That's exactly what I'm saying. And you're not going to just, not dress Winston as the emergency quarterback, So, anyways, one final question, and then we'll just give our lasting thoughts.
Hey, fellas, love the show. AJ's hockey partner, Steve, here. Now that Aaron Rodgers is in limbo, do you think he's going to wind up signing with anybody, or he's taking his last snap in the NFL? Also, Aaron Judge's massive bomb at Steinbrenner Field was fair. They called it foul. Juan Soto's home run they initially called fair, reversed it to a foul ball. I think the sports world is more in love with the Mets than you are, AJ.
So, I mean, I'll answer the question that's actually asked, and then I'll get the shot at me after from Steve. But I think that Rodgers is leaning more towards retirement now more than ever. You kind of got through that free agency period now. You kind of know where these veteran QBs land, and he's still out there. I mean, the only way to really see him continuing would be if someone went down in the preseason or training camp where you need a desperate need for change potentially. But to my knowledge, I do think that the legendary career of Aaron Rodgers is over. It would only be fitting if he went to the Vikings because it would just be fitting for him to
about to say, I think he's waiting for camp to see how JJ is.
Well, no, I just thought it'd be funny because he would do exactly what Favre.
Yeah, Favre did. Yeah. But no, I think he's waiting for camp to see what kind of shape JJ McCarthy's in. Because I think the Vikings at this point are comfortable rolling out McCarthy as their quarterback 1 if he's 100% healthy. But if they're not, I think they're going to lean towards maybe making that phone call and trying to alert Rodgers for a couple games or just a year, because he knows that's the Super Bowl champion. That's the Super Bowl chance where you're playing with the Vikings instead of that Steelers team. Indoors, that receiving group, he's got a better shot there. So I agree with you, AJ. I think it's coming to an end to at this rate.
And then the final question is between Judge and Soto. Listen, I was at the game last night. I actually got a video of that home run, which was pretty cool. I don't know if it's on our fantasy chat, Sam, but I actually got a video of it, and there was certainly foul. I mean, the Soto home was foul. I'm happy it got overturned. I'm not the cheating type. But the Judge homer is fair for sure. I mean, I am a Mets lover, hater, but I love Aaron Judge. Like, I think he's amazing for the sport. I've never once said I dislike him. I think he's phenomenal for the sport. He's such a unique athlete, so tall, center field. I mean, the guy is hitting like 450. I mean, just incredible. Over 500 on base percentage. So I think right now, though, the front runners for MVP is both in New York, say Lindor in the National League and Judge in the American League. But it will certainly be fun Subway Series just in about under a month from now at Yankee Stadium. But Sam, back to football. Any lasting thoughts before we head off? I'll start. All I gotta say is it's a big weekend for New York, and I know that's not anyone could say that, right? But I think the desperate measures for a regime struggled so poorly last. Didn't even know if they'd have a job now, coming off a 3-14 season. I mean, which could have been 2-15. Isaiah Smith Marchetti doesn't take one to the house against the Colts.
He and Cam Ward. Well, it is what it is. Hang in there, Giants fans out there. We're getting a really good player in Abdul Carter on Thursday night. I hope, knock on wood. Me and AJ have seen this kid dominate, for years now. He's versatile. He's plug and play guy, and he will automatically be one of the better players on our roster come day one. So be excited about that. We're gonna get an elite player in that first round. We just got to hit on those middle round picks, like we said. So should be a fun week. We'll be back next week with a full draft recap and breakdown of the Giants selections. Age, always a pleasure hopping on here.
Yep, agreed, pal. And we will be back next week on the Rovner Report, episode 48. And we will give you the scoop on the NFL draft. Have a great rest of your week going into the weekend, and we'll talk some football next week. Be well.